Hey, everybody. All right, we are getting ready to rock and roll. I am going to do this thing where someone told me I can actually share so that people can see on Facebook. So I'm going to try that really quick. I'm going to do that right now. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Perfect. I'm going to share that actually, see if I can share that right onto my business page on a page I manage. Boom. Excellent. So I hope everyone has had a lovely week. As usual, this is River Lee. I am the founder of the Savvy Groomer. I have been in the grooming industry well over 10 years now. I've managed a doggy daycare. I've been a dog trainer. I've owned a grooming salon with 5 employees. I've been a mobile feline exclusive groomer. I own my own mobile business. I love that. And I'm really excited to talk to you today. This is our Grow Wealthy Grooming weekly show at 7 p.m. on Mondays Eastern Time. And this week is all about part 1 of Are You Prepared for the Holiday Rush? And I first want to talk to business owners. And we're going to do one this week, and then we'll do another one next week. And depending upon where you are in the world, we're either talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas. Some of you guys in other parts of the world, we're only going to be talking about Christmas or other holidays that you may have in the month of November and December. So feel free if you have any questions or you want to add anything to this conversation, go ahead and use the comment section. I do have the live chat up. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pop open my notes. Excellent. So first things first, I want to ask you is, are you prepared as far as your inventory? So if you're a business owner, I know that you know how to order. You're more than capable of keeping things in stock. However, with the holidays coming up, I want to ask you, what is going to happen if there's a major snowstorm where you are, or like a lot of times what happens with Amazon Prime becoming so popular? What if instead of getting something in 2 or 3 days, what if you can't get it in for a week or two? What if your favorite Christmas shampoo, like I love Le Pooch Noel, gets back ordered? Then what are you going to do? So making sure you're going to have more than enough of things like bandanas. I know some of you guys are like, well, I could run to Joann's Fabric. Running to Joann's Fabric in the middle of the Christmas rush is going to be a nightmare. So make sure you have more than enough bandanas. Again, shampoo. What if your favorite shampoo goes on back order? And this time of year, when I owned my dog grooming salon, we either used as a custom scent, Le Pooch Noel, or we would use a more vanilla sugar cookie style, and we would add that in with our promo. If we ran out of that, we're going to have to, fix the promo, and it's going to be a lot harder to find a scent that is Christmassy, because to me, Christmas smells either like pine trees, like a neem shampoo, or it smells like sugar cookies. And then again, if you're in Thanksgiving, maybe you have a pumpkin spice, which is kind of a gross scent, but if you have pumpkin spice shampoo, if you run out of that, what is your plan for the customers that maybe want that upgrade, but now can't have it? Other things that you may want to consider is if you have enough stock of towels. Some of you guys are more than capable of, at the end of the day, taking your towels home and washing them. I, for health reasons, strongly advise not to wash personal towels with the towels at your house. A lot of these towels have blood, feces, urine on them, and you may or may not be bringing home a lot of those potential diseases to your own pets. So I really don't suggest that. And on a nicer level, I understand some people will want to use a laundromat, and for the same reasons, I don't always agree with that. But if you're going to use those things, are you actually able? Again, we're going to say, if you have a towel service, have you ordered extra towels? Are you planning for extra towels, as in, if you normally do your towels once a week, if you're doing double or triple the amount of dogs during the holiday rush, Are you prepared for that? Do you have enough towels? Do you have enough towels just in the day? If for some reason you run out of them, what is your backup plan? The worst thing you want to do is have a really humid salon, run out of towels, and what are you going to do? Have an employee run to the laundromat, wash and dry? It's going to take 2 hours. Having a plan of what you're going to do, or even just keeping more of an inventory and a backlog, because as much as we may be good at making sure we don't use 4 towels per dog, some employees use towels like they're going out of style, and there's not much we can do about that. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, just look around if there's anything else you may need. Little things like quick stop, ear cleaner. You don't want to run out of these things when you're grooming. That is the worst time. A lot of times I've heard other grooming business owners say to me, well, I'll just run to Petco, but I can buy a gallon of professional grade ear cleaner for the same amount of money that I can buy a little thing from Petco. It doesn't make any financial sense. And a lot of that is just a lack of preparation. So go through your salon, make sure that you're not missing anything, that there's nothing that you need to add to your list. And if there is, start thinking about it now. We are about, 9 days from Thanksgiving? We're about a week and a half away from Thanksgiving if you're in the US. So you've got 10 days. So if you've got 10 days before Thanksgiving, that is more than enough time for you to go through your store and go ahead and order those things before the end of the week. If you order before the end of the week, you'll be able to have it in well before Thanksgiving. And then whatever you don't use before Thanksgiving, you'll probably use before Christmas. All right, and then let's get into the nitty-gritty on really refining your systems in place. And one of the main things I want to talk about is if you start adding people in. So your schedule. Everyone's schedule is different. Everyone has different business models. I know we've talked about this extensively. But now that we have the, McDonald's versus the Starbucks versus the Dunkin' Donuts, let's talk a little bit about what your plan is if people call. So are you or are you not going to take walk-ins? You might say it depends. Okay, well, what are the things that make it depend on? The reason I ask is because a lot of times we say we will take walk-ins as long as they're, let's say very short-coated dogs like pit bulls. Well, okay, but what if a pit bull comes in and it's absolutely hyper insane and barking, and now it's going to stress out all those dogs? When are you going to take in walk-ins? Are walk-ins going to be available? Like, are you going to top load your day and then say, okay, we'll take walk-ins or same-day appointments at the end of the day, depending upon how the day has gone? That's my personal favorite way. We used to always top load all of our Saturday appointments. There were no appointments that we made after 12 on a Saturday because that allowed us to take walk-ins. Obviously, around the holidays, we would have so many people want those holiday Saturday appointments that we would need to extend those out. And if we did not catch up by a certain time, we could not take same day appointments. It was what it was. There was no way to do it. Or we would see how we would feel as a team. And if the team said, you know what, yeah, we can take another 5 baths, then that's different than just keep throwing dogs onto your employees and making them work till they burn out, especially Thanksgiving, because Christmas, at least then, in theory, they have, a little bit of time to recover. But after Thanksgiving, you really need a little bit of time. You don't really have a lot. You might have like a week of quiet time before you start ramping up for Christmas again. And then that's another question. Are you going to take appointments? You can say anyone booked after this date, we're not taking any more appointments. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. A lot of you mobiles, house calls, anybody who does one-on-one grooming, you're probably not able to fit in any more appointments at this point for at least Thanksgiving, if not Christmas. And what's so good about that is that it allows you to create a hard line. And then for next year, if those clients want to get in before the holidays, tough luck. At when I had my salon, pretty much by the time I was running it, it was about 5 years that we owned it. The last year, my my rule was if I didn't see you in September and I did not see you in October, I do not see you in November and December. And I did that because we were so busy. There was no hope of getting in anybody. And if I was going to take anybody, it certainly was not going to be the once a year dog or the twice a year dog or the dog that has not been groomed in 3 or 4 months or was groomed at PetSmart Petco by an inexperienced groomer who just did the top and didn't really demat the dog or didn't do a good haircut where the dog was now going to have to be completely fixed. And we all know those kind of haircuts where they're so choppy, you're like, unless if I take this all the way down, this is going to be all thinning shear. It's going to take me forever to make this dog look presentable. And so that might be something where you're like, nah, I'm good. But having that in place, not only telling yourself that and having that plan, but also telling your staff, because your staff is not always as knowledgeable as you, or maybe they're just really sweet and they don't realize the impact of things. I remember when I was a baby groomer, and it was just one of those situations where like someone had this total sob story about this golden retriever, about how, he had allergies and they were trying so hard and they bathed him all summer and the hose. And as this baby groomer, I'm like, oh, this is so heartbreaking. And of course, this golden comes in, it's completely impacted and it's got hot spots and it's got yeasty ears. And it's one of those fat Goldens that pancakes and refuses to stand. And I remember, I was working for somebody and they're like, yeah, that's all you. Because that kind of dog, it just took forever. And of course, that owner did not want to pay extra, even though their pet needed medicated wash. Their pet needed way more brushing than, now it would have been easier for me to get a lot of that coat out. But at the time, I did not have the skill set to get out that much impacted coat. So it was kind of a nightmare. So yeah, live and learn, right? So your baby groomer, or if you have a staff member who has a very good heart but doesn't realize what they're agreeing to, you really don't want them to pick up the phone and say, yeah, oh my God, of course you want your decrepit golden to look beautiful for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I totally get it. And then, and then it's that dog that takes like 2 people 4 hours and they want to pay the same price as the golden that comes in every 2 or 4 weeks. So really communicate with your staff as well as yourself. I talk to myself a lot as if I was a staff member, which sounds really weird, but I say to myself, all right, River, what is it that our goal is for today? And is this, a smart move? And, as much as my as an older groomer, I guess, I feel like as like a boomer groomer, right? It's like, okay, boomer. That's how I feel sometimes with grooming. But yeah, with that, if I take on that old golden who really can't be groomed easily, am I setting back myself and my team? And the truth is, I would, right? Like, how many hours would I set myself back? That's crazy. Okay, moving to our next thing. And with the same thing with appointments, what if one of your best clients call and they need a last minute appointment? That can either be a grooming appointment or a bath appointment. A lot of groomers, have these clients that we have soft spots for. I have them as well. Being mobile, it's a lot easier to play with my schedule in the sense that I can honestly make a decision. And a lot of it comes down to, am I in your area and do I have a spot? But when you're in a salon, is it, a lack of cage space, a lack of physical resources because you can only groom so many dogs, or time because a lot of times we could stay an extra hour late to take care of a good client, which is something we tend to do, even though we really shouldn't always do that. So if they call, let's say they cancel their appointment because something came up, they're taking care of their elderly family member, or, maybe they just forgot. And then, they're like, I'll reschedule. They don't reschedule. Shocking, I know. And then they call and they're like, oh, Sasha really needs a groom before Thanksgiving. Or, you don't have to do a full haircut. Just, bathe her and do, they don't say a face, feet, and staining. Just like trim her up, which let's be honest, a trim up all over is a haircut. I don't know why people think that's not. Okay, how are you going to handle that? And obviously, it depends on what and why the dog, etc. But having a framework allows you to say yes or no quicker because, in theory, in that moment, you're going to be so clear and so smart and be like, let me think about this. I'm like 7 dogs deep. I'm covered in dog hair. I have anal glands in my hair. I have quick stop under my nails. Sure, let me think about for a second if this is a wise decision. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to be like, and be like, do I hate this client? Do I like this client? Like, how flexible am I feeling? And that's a problem because 9 times out of 10, what happens to all of us because we have such good, caring hearts is we say, I guess. And then we're either staying there late. And it's always the client that you do that for that doesn't show up to pick up their dog. They show up like an hour or two after you close because of some nonsense. Like they might have actually gotten stuck in traffic, but they probably just got stuck at the store grocery shopping for whatever holiday it is. So anyway, that's a great question. And if they want a last minute bath, is that something you're willing to squeeze them into? You may say, yes, of course. I want to get everybody wants to come in. Or you might say, no, probably not. And if I did, it'd have to be a dog that's been done in the last 2 weeks, or it'd have to be a dog that's super easy. You have to know yourself, your staff, and, your clientele. I personally had no problem squeezing in last minute baths around this time, but my clients knew as far as haircuts go, I'll trim around the eyes, I'll shave out the pads really lazily, and make sure there's no poop going to get stuck to the butt. Besides that, you're shit out of luck. There's no hope. Like, there was no hope because that's something that I could, at the time in my salon, I had a receptionist who was able to do basic things like that. So at worst, those are things that she could do if I didn't have a bather or a groomer or even me able to do those things. But that's a whole nother story. Okay. Now, here's another good question. So that same client who is one of your best clients, what if she calls and let's say her sister's beagle is staying with her sister at her house and the dog reeks? You ever had like that person that, they bring in their family members, lab, beagle, pit, whatever is like a short coat. You don't know how that dog is. They say they have the rabies, but is it the rabies or the rabies tag? Does this dog reek or is this dog skunky or is this dog yeasty? Like, what is this going to be? What are you going to do? It's easier to have a policy of, yeah, we're taking any bath and we're going to charge an extra emergency fee of, let's say, 25% more or $10 or $20 more as a last minute emergency fee, or no emergency fees if you guys don't want a holiday emergency fee. Or are you going to go ahead and say, no, if they're not regular clients, we're not taking them around the holiday season? Or are you going to say, yes, we're going to take these clients, but they're only going to be by referral? And obviously, you can always make exceptions, but a lot of this stuff is mainly for you to say, okay, what is my ideal? And then go from there. Having no idea and taking everything as a blank slate makes it a lot harder to make decisions because during the holiday rush, so there's actually something called decision fatigue. What decision fatigue is essentially is you can only make so many decisions in one day. Having a thermometer reading on how you feel about your business is going to make it a lot easier for you to make decisions during a stressful time around the holidays when you're grooming dogs, watching employees, there's poop on the ground. Like, it is a crazy time. So again, will you take skunk or flea infested pets? Personally, I don't believe during the holiday season, you should take skunk or any pets with pesticides. The reason simply is with skunks, obviously, then the entire shop reeks. If you do want to take skunk pets, I highly suggest you do them as the very last pet and have them be a start to finish, like appointment where only the owner is there. If you even have the owner stay in the vestibule or if they're going to go ahead and come back. But I personally think that having skunk dogs around your clients is really gross. Clients don't like it. There's nothing worse than walking into a grooming salon and it reeks of skunk. Sometimes you get that dog that was skunked months ago and you get them wet and you get the waft of it. That's different than a freshly skunked dog. So that's personally what I would do, but you have to know your business and your clientele. And with flea dogs, I generally say I would not take pets infested with fleas or ticks. I mean, if they have one tick, that's one thing. But if that pet is infested with fleas, I would get them the hell out of your salon in general, but especially during the holiday season. There's nothing worse as a pet owner if I brought my dog to your salon and then it came home with fleas. And the problem is 9 times out of 10, if you accept fleas into your facility, you can't stop fleas from jumping on one pet to another pet. It's almost impossible. Even if you put them immediately into the tub, you've had that dog walk into the front of your shop. You probably have some sort of carpet right near the door. You have leashes. Now that leash is hanging up probably next to other pets. Maybe you had that pet holding for a few minutes and those fleas have jumped from one kennel to the other. If you're wiping down that kennel with a towel, you probably are now going to have flea eggs or fleas in that towel. Fleas are nasty. So the more opportunity you have for that to happen, the more likely it is for fleas to get onto another pet. Also, your staff really doesn't want to be dealing with fleas when they're already having a really, really busy season. They're already doing probably 20% more dogs. If you're used to doing 8, they're probably doing 10. You're already pushing them to the limit. There's nothing grosser than washing fleas out. I'm not talking dead fleas. If you have a client that you know well, that you can trust, that was given the pet a Capstar or they got an oral medication, I never trust them with spot-on treatments. Owners they just don't know what they're doing. But an oral medication, it's been at least an hour since that pet had that oral medication, or ideally at least 24 hours. And you're washing dead fleas off, that's a little bit different. But live fleas, you're really asking for a pet to go home around the holiday season infested because you allowed pets with pests onto your property. So let's begin a different question. And remember, this is for our business owners, but I know employees are also going to be thinking about this as well. So your business or the business that you work in. Are your clients used to the well-oiled machine that is your shop, or is your shop kind of chaotic already? So let's talk about policies. What are your policies, and do clients honestly know your policies? This is a tough one because I have a lot of sympathy for our clients, because most people assume that they read their policies 3 years ago and remember them. With my shop, what I had is I used to have a check-in, and the check-in would actually be a little spot where I had the basic policies. Like I had the policies and it had what was done in the policies. So for instance, pickup, what was the pickup policy? The pickup policy was every pet was done within any bath dog was done no later than 3 hours. Any haircut dog was done no later than 4 hours unless specified. And anything beyond 30 minutes from that specified time was a fee. And so what we would do is, so we had the policies, and underneath it, we had the time. So we would have Fluffy, Maltese. I would generally write what color the dog was, because if it said Maltese and it was a black dog, because it wasn't really a Maltese, it would be like a Maltipoo. What color the dog was, Then we would also write what the haircut was, and we would communicate with the owner. So it'd be like half inch, three-fourth, round head, anything they specified. And then I would have the time they checked in the dog. So when they were right there, I'd be like, okay, well, it's 11 o'clock. And then what I would do is I would have the estimated checkout time. So let's say it's 11 o'clock. So ready? It's a haircut dog. So I would go 12, 13, the 12, 1, 2, 3. Does 3 o'clock work for you? And they would see my fingers because it was at the 4 hour mark. And they would kind of look and they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Do you want us to call or text you before you pick up? And they'd be like, well, maybe, you know? And that's the tough part. So they would, they would know when they had to pick up by. And I would either text or call, depending upon what they wanted, when they were ready. And they loved that because then they knew no later than 4 o'clock, their pet would be ready. I'm sorry, 3 o'clock, their pet would be ready because it was the 4 hours. And with the bath dogs, do the same thing. They dropped off at 11, 12, 1, 2. Does 2 o'clock work for you to pick up Fluffy? And so we had a really easy system where there was no miscommunication. And then we would also write down afterwards what time the pet was picked up. The reason I did that is because let's say the wife called back later and, she was like, oh, Fluffy seemed really upset. And we would look at the sheet and I'd be like, well, it looks like you dropped off Fluffy at 11. We told you to come back at 3, but then your husband wasn't there till 5. So Fluffy was in a kennel for 6 hours. That's a long time for a Fluffy. And she'd be like, you're very right there. Okay, I'm going to talk to my husband. So these are ways that I worked on creating a well-oiled machine in my salon. But make sure your policies make sense for your clients. I found this strategy worked really well because my clients, for the most part, I did live on this busy street, but the shop that was on that really busy street, it had to make sense for them because the truth is when they're on that street around a certain time of day, so like when the high school went out, which was around 2 o'clock, not on Saturdays, obviously during the week, what took somebody 10 minutes, could take an hour now. That's a big transition. So, knowing what time, but they knew because they either got a text message or they got another way to communicate and how to communicate back with me. And so that was my policies. But, what other policies are in your systems that may or may not make any sense? I love the example of pickup times because I think those are really easy. So for me, I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm that client, like I don't like a 2 hour window. So when I have an hour window and I can kind of make that work, but 2 hours, and then let's say I get a 30-minute phone call before I have to be there. Well, what if I'm on the other side of town? What if I'm eating lunch? You have to know your clients. Are these clients that work from home? They might be in the middle of a conference call. They can't drop what they're doing, get in the car and rush over. So make sure your policies make sense. And again, we talked about with your McDonald's style clients. If you have a McDonald's style client, it doesn't make you may not be able to have things like they have to have an appointment, not like overall an appointment, but like how I had mentioned earlier that if they were not there in September and October, they couldn't be in November, December. If you have a McDonald's style business, it really won't work well because your clients are so used to doing whatever the hell they want. So those clients are probably not going to follow that policy. And remember that people are going to be just as busy as you will be and decide how you're going to handle that. So if I have clients that are busy and they're running to the store, which is going to be insane, they may not be able to rush back. Or you may want their dog done in an hour or 2, but are they going to pick up? And they may or may not want you to run late. Sometimes we overbook ourselves. What are you going to do if you tell them 2 hours and then you get behind and now it's going to be 4? Or you tell them 2 hours and then a dog, God forbid, knock on wood, something happens and then now you need extra time because that dog was crazy and you had to like work around the whole salon because instead of being able to ask your bather to come help you, now you've got to do it basically by yourself. Or if your bather does have to come help you, then that bather is not keeping up with their own tasks. And make sure that if you don't already, you get a system in place for your salon. There's so many different ways of having different business models, but having a system that works in place for your salon is going to make your salon run so much smoother. Alan is saying, I will give an estimate time and say, I will text you 15 minutes before the dog is done. Spoiler, text when the dog is actually done. That's really great, Alan. So we would do things very similar. Well, at least I do it in my mobile. Back then, it was totally different because we had so many employees. It was really easy to keep on task. But I agree. In my mobile, I text when the cat is done and I let them know that the cat will be done in 15 minutes because in that 15 minutes, I then get to clean up. So the cat's in the caddy shack back. Hi, Shelly. Good to see you, dear. When the cat's in the caddy shack back, I am cleaning up while they think they have a 15-minute, time frame. And that allows me to get everything ready and everything put away. So when the client comes to the van, everything is prepared. I need a little drink, don't mind me. Speaking of clients, let me ask you guys a question. Are you going to give out presents, cards, food around the holidays? And if you are, do you really have time to commit to getting them done? I personally write handwritten Christmas cards to all of my clients. I have about 100 families, and that's more than that cats. But I personally don't do sweet things like cat pictures anymore. And the reason why is because I don't have time to realistically take pictures. I take before and after photos of every pet, but those are not cute. Like those are very utilitarian. I don't personally have time in my mobile, even over 2 months, to take pictures of that pet in order to put them in the cards. So what I do is I handwrite cards. Now I have 100 families about there. If I had 1,200, there's absolutely no way I could do that. There's no way. It would be so hard. With my shop, we had about 1,200 clients. There's no way I could have done that at all. Like there's no hope. Shelly's saying cards at most VIPs get $50 holiday season plan. Oh, that's really nice. I like that. And speaking of things, like, so I do cards, and I mail them out. But let's say you're giving out cookies, like human cookies. Well, do your customers like those cookies? Do they want those cookies? Are they a good cookie? I've gotten like chocolate and I don't like chocolate, so I just regift it, but I'm like, I don't want this. I've seen people give away cat toys and dog toys, obviously, like little balls, little things. My favorite thing, I don't do it now, but when I owned my dog grooming salon, I had this great magnetic picture frame. And then we would very quickly, see, this is where I'm saying it's different. Even though I had more clients, it was very different. Any pet that was groomed within the week of Christmas, not before then, unless if they were very regular and they had intentionally gone up or down for our sake, I would take a quick picture of the pet. And then when we gave them the photo frame, we would also give them the print. And we had a little printer for quick photos. They were not great. They were not wonderful. People didn't care. People loved it. And we also did Santa. We would actually have my ex-husband would come and sit in the grooming salon and he would be Santa Claus. And if they wanted pictures with Santa, we would just do the pictures really quick and give it to them. So you would do things like that. And knowing what your clients want and knowing what's going to make them happy, your clientele, what they like, what they don't like. Giving options is always great. Making homemade biscuits, like whatever it is that is in your heart, go ahead and do. And if you want to do nothing, you're not the Grinch. It's okay. You don't have to be festive. Just don't go halfway through festivities. Don't say you're going to give everyone pictures and then realize you don't have the time or energy to do it, that really sucks. It's going to make you look really stupid. Don't do that. Oh, Alan says Santa Paws. That's so cute. Oh my God, I'm such a sucker for stuff like that. So just make sure like what you're doing for the holiday season makes sense. And with that said, don't do it and then half-ass it, or don't do it and do a bad job. I know I was in the comments for one thread where this woman was making these really adorable ties and they had like turkeys on them. And her plan was to give everyone in November them. Well, she was making them by hand and she ran out of time, and she had bought the fabric, but then she ran out of the fabric and she couldn't go back to the store because they had no more of that fabric. And so what she ended up doing is having to buy turkey ties from, I think, AliExpress, which is like a place in China. And it cost her like $2 a tie. And she's like, do I just stop buying these ties or do I just eat the cost? And that's a tough question because now all these customers are excited and they're buzzed about these cute little ties they've been giving out all month. And now, now you don't have any more. And I mean, we've got at least 10 days to Thanksgiving. So that's a lot of pets. You're talking probably 100 more ties. That's $200 worth of a mistake potentially. And that's on the low end. You figure I don't know if she has employees or not, but that's a lot of money for something that your clients may or may not actually be that excited about. And because we're talking about business owners, let's also talk about how you're going to be treating your employees. Get water really quick. Sorry, guys. And please feel free, if you have any more questions about what I'm talking about or any clarification, please feel free to post in the live chat. I'm here for you guys. I want to make sure I'm helping you. And if you guys have questions too that you want to ask me for next week, which is part 2, you can also either comment below this video. You can message me on Facebook at the Savvy Groomer. So if you just go to facebook.com/growwealthygrooming, you'll find my page. You can message me there. And that is going to be part 2 is going to be about being an employee. But right now I'm talking about business owners about their employees. So let's have a real conversation. Are you going to be taking days off? I always took the week after Thanksgiving, so I would be closed Thursday, Friday, all the way to the following Thursday. That's what I personally did. And then for Christmas, I started closing New Year's Eve. And actually, it's a really funny story. I had a crazy lady leave me a really nasty message because she thought I was open Christmas Eve and I was not. And so I do Christmas Eve until depending upon when January 2nd falls around there, either January 2nd or 3rd, depending upon what day it is. Like if the 2nd's a Sunday, then I open the Monday or whatever it was. This year, I haven't really fully decided. I'm definitely taking my usual week off with my clients. But Christmas, I haven't really decided because none of my clients want Christmas because I'm mobile and I go to them. And for the most part, they're like, yeah, and they're all monthly regular. So it's just different. So that's been interesting to learn. And it was less so last year, but now everyone's on a 4-week schedule. So they're like, yeah, we'd rather just not have to deal with finding the cat the week of Christmas. I'm like, I get that. That makes sense. So business owners, about your employees, what time are you closing? And then are your employees going to be working or are they going to have the time off? Unless you have a really strong staff and you have really good regulations and systems and all that, I would never let your staff there when you're not there until everyone's fully trained, because it's a great way for your employees to steal from you, steal client information, or make really bad decisions and then you get stuck going to work anyway. So if your employees are not going to be working and you are not going to be working, do they get paid? So if you have employees that work for you, and they're off, are they going to get paid? And that's really important to know and to set a standard for your employees. Because a lot of these employees are expecting that money, or they budget based on 4 weeks worth of work. And where they're going to be, especially if they're making hourly, with commission, the goal obviously would be to do an extra week's worth of dogs within the 3 weeks that they're working, and then they get the week off. And that's essentially how they would get paid. But a lot of times we assume that's what's gonna happen, but because of whatever goes on, maybe that doesn't happen. And so is the staff member financially prepared to take a whole week off, or are you going to give them any money? And I think this should have been talked about when you were setting the schedule for the holidays, but having a real conversation with your staff needs to happen. A lot of times we just do whatever the hell we want as a business owner and expect our staff to just be okay with that. I don't think you should be slaves to your staff. I don't think that you should have to worry about what your staff is going to do. However, I do believe in being a benevolent leader, and I do believe that you should treat people like you want to be treated. And as somebody who it's, long story short, when I was managing a doggy daycare when I was pregnant with my son, and they told me flat out I could not take a maternity leave. And I'm like, "Well, that's not the way that works." And they said, "Well, we can't afford it. So pretty much you'll have to work till you have this baby, and then when you have this baby, we don't know what you're going to do, but we can't afford for you to take 8 weeks off, 12 weeks off." They said, "We really don't even want you gone for 2 weeks." And, some of that is just crazy because what's a woman gonna do? Pop a baby out on, especially with a doggy daycare. I mean, there was no hope. And ironically, I did for my own business. I opened my shop up 4 days before he was born. I worked a full Saturday, went into labor Sunday. Yeah, do the math. Went into labor Sunday, had him on Tuesday, and I was back at work by the following Saturday. But that was different because it was my own business. I set the own pace. It was a brand new business, and I brought him with me. But have these conversations with your staff. If they're going to be off, are you going to subsidize their income at all? And you don't have to, but at least let them know what is going on. Another thing is about pay. Again, another way you may want to soften this is to let your employees know that there are going to be any bonuses or any holiday extras when we're creating culture. No one really talks about creating culture in this industry. You want to create a staff that enjoys you and really looks up to you. Being this cruel boss that we all have had at some point, if you've owned your own business, it's different than when you have a boss. But I mean, I've had a lot of bosses I loved, and I've had a lot of bosses that really didn't give a shit about me. And I understand now as a business owner why they didn't care about me, because I was just a cog in the machine. But those people don't ever stay there. They could be the best employee, but if someone's a cog in the machine, they're not going to stay. They don't want to be that. So a way to lessen it is, with my employees, what I would let them know is, yes, we're going to be closed. At the end of my time owning my shop, they had a base salary, and then they made bonuses and things like that. So I told them flat out, you were going to get your base salary because I'm closing, because that's what I choose to do. And I knew they had family and everything like that. And that was not easy, but that's why they had a base salary and they got bonuses and didn't get straight commission. And then as far as bonuses went, their bonuses were quarterly, and the bonuses, I mean, it was calculated monthly but paid out quarterly. So the bonuses were based upon if they beat projection. And so what that meant is, yes, I'm going to ask you to work really hard, but if you work really hard and you groom regularly, then we are, as a team, not just one person, but as a team, if we beat these, then we would get a set amount of money. And that again would be based upon how many pets we groomed and everything like that. And so those are really nice if you want to give somebody a bonus maybe for November and say, hey, if you groom X amount of dollars this month, I'll give you X amount of bonus as a kicker. Or, hey, December's coming up. If you groom this many pets, or there's no incidents in the salon or whatever it is, you can give them an incentive to keep working hard. Now, on the bad side with our employees, because why not? Let's talk about employee issues. So this is the time of year as employees know we can't fire them because you can't afford to fire someone. So they're going to pull a lot of shit. If your employee shows up late, what are you going to do about it? And how late before you really get pissed off? So if my employee shows up 10 minutes late, and obviously you're going to say something to them, but what is the consequence? Is there no consequence? If they're 15 minutes late, if they're 30 minutes late, what if they're late 4 hours? What if they call out? What if they no call, no show? Now, you probably have policies in place for these things. And if you don't, you need to. If you have employees, you need policies in your employee handbook on how all of this will be handled. That said, this time of year, they know that you can't fire them. Why? Because you don't want to groom all their goddamn dogs the rest of the month. That's the truth. I mean, I've been there. Sorry, my watch keeps going off. Somebody really wants to say hi to me. It's like, calm down. I'm busy. I'm with my peoples. So if they know you're not gonna fire them, what are they gonna do? They're gonna walk all over you. So if someone is 30 minutes late for work, what is the consequence? And make sure your staff knows. You know, does that mean they stay 30 minutes late? Well, what if they can't? What if they have to go pick up their kid at school? What are you going to do? And being able to stick to that gun. What if they're hours late? What if they're 3 hours late? What if they show up high or intoxicated? I mean, these are all very normal things, but it has the added pressure of if you have a full day worth of groomed dogs and your bather and every other person has a full day's worth of dogs and they don't show up or they show up late, then that creates a lot of pressure on your staff. This is also why I tell the people that I'm generally coaching that want to build a business is that if you're going to build, so I have 3 different categories of groomers. You're an employee, which you should be a W-2 employee. You're a self-employed groomer, which is a one groomer house, or you have independent contractors working for you. And then third is a business owner. A business owner should be a manager, an entrepreneur. They should be focusing on those things because then either you or your manager should not be grooming full time. Because then if your staff comes in drunk, high, they make a really stupid mistake, they do something really stupid, you can send them home and somebody can take over their day of dogs. Your manager's not going to want to do that, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Same thing with you. You probably, if you get the nice sweet taste of never having to groom all day, then when you have to step in though, you know you can do it. And that's important. But that's another topic for another day. That could go a whole day. So anyway, make sure you have a plan in place if there is an issue with your staff. Because then if your staff decide to pull something like that, you are able to make decisions without sitting there grinding your emotional gears. Remember, decision fatigue. I want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a place where you're just fried and you start crying and you just have this total meltdown. Because it sucks. It sucks when you have an employee pulling shit at the busiest times of the year. Because you just want them to do what you're paying them to do. And for some reason, they just don't. And there's really no reason. They've just chosen not to. So those are my thoughts today on making sure you are prepared for the holiday rush if you're an employer. I would love any comments, advice, anything you guys want to share, go ahead. I'm going to cut this video down and then I always post the revised version on Fridays. I'm super excited to see that. I like doing that. I think it's great. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I cannot wait to see you guys again next week on Monday. If you haven't already, go ahead to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/growwealthygrooming. Like the Savvy Groomer page. Check out my website, savvygroomer.com. You're welcome to sign up for my online course called Personal Finance in a Leash, which is a 12-week online course teaching you personal finance for groomers. For groomers, by groomers. I love it. And we are going to be working on adding some live workshops in the next couple of weeks. So I'm really excited about that as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have a great evening and happy grooming.